Hey ladies, so today I have something special for you. We're changing it up. I have been going back, well not me, my amazing team has been going back and asking some of the other podcasts that I've actually been on if we could utilize that interview on Mom is in Control. So throughout the weeks to come, you may hear some interviews that I've done in the past with other people. So let's dive into today's episode. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think.
Hi, and welcome back to the 3-Day Workweek podcast. I am Cailen and Ascher, your host, and here we have awesome conversations with powerhouse women who are creating lives and businesses on their terms. And today on the show, we have my very good friend, Heather Chauvin. She is the creator of the Mom is in Control podcast, a mostly solo show where she tells it like it is. She reveals her most vulnerable truths about womanhood, parenting her 3 boys, living through stage 4 cancer, navigating marriage, and creating business success without burning out. On her podcast and through her work, she challenges women to give themselves permission to live more, drop the guilt, and ask for what they need. Heather has been featured on the Huffington Post, the OWN Network, CTV, and interviewed by many notable podcasters and radio shows. And her motto is, in order to raise happy, calm, confident children, we must become the person we most desire them to be. Hey, Heather, thanks for being here, girl.
I'm so excited. Thank you, Cailen.
Yeah, I am excited too. We were just talking right before the show got rolling. I was like, how many times have we had these interviews? And because Heather just recently interviewed me for her podcast. She was a part of a masterclass series I've done before. So we just look for any excuse to talk and have fun together.
I know. It's funny. After a while, you're like, oh, every time we talk, we have to hit record.
Yeah, it is so true. So here we are again, chatting and recording. But I'd love for you to share first just a little bit about how you got started on this entrepreneurial path that you're now on.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I always say I fell into business. I never had a desire to own my own business, but it's just like, when you have a problem, your own problem, and a willingness to solve it, and you see a void in, the culture or community, that's like, a beautiful concoction for entrepreneurship. And I actually never knew what an entrepreneur was or how to start a business. And I assumed you had to have like an MBA to start a business. Like, I didn't go to school for this. I don't know what I'm doing. It's so beautiful how our mindsets work and our belief systems. But okay, so Mom is in Control started. I have 3 boys. They're 14, 9, and 6. And I had a huge passion for I saw a need. I used to be a social worker and I worked very closely with families in need. And I saw this void, this like hole. And I was like, why can't anyone else see this? And I was experiencing this in my own home where we're labeling children and ourselves, right? We're labeling people, but we're not actually taking action or creating solution-oriented like interventions for transformation. AKA, you have a problem, here's a label, here's something to mask the symptom, but why aren't we getting to the deeper rooted problem? So I started noticing this and noticed it in my own home when my oldest son started school, and there was I was getting calls about anger and anxiety, and I was losing my shit at home and didn't know how to be of service to him. And so slowly, as I started integrating, first it was mindfulness. It was teaching him mindfulness. And I always laugh. One of the first programs that I created was called Teach Your Kid to Meditate, because I'm like, he needs to meditate. He has the problem. And it was a mere reflection of what I needed to do in myself. If I didn't know how to feel in control of my own anxiety. I didn't know where it was coming from. I didn't know emotional intelligence or how to feel in control of my big emotions. So once I discovered that it was me projecting my fear and insecurity onto him as a mother, I started doing the work on myself. And people started asking me like, what are you doing? How did you create this shift in your relationship with your child? I'm like, I started working on myself. And then So I started the podcast and I started coaching people, which was a big mindset shift, and started investing in myself and mentors and like, hey, how did you do that? I want to learn, and took my business online. And then 5 years ago, as I'm building my business, we're always learning lessons. And another big lesson that I was learning was, this hustle game. And I know you're a big advocate of the 3-day work week.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to hustle to be successful. I was doing everything that I possibly can from sunrise to sunset until my body just said, like, go to bed, to quote unquote build a successful business. And it left me almost dead. My abdomen was swollen. I went to the doctors and immediately they told me I had cancer. And I found out it was a stage 4 rapid growing lymphoma. And in that time, everything stopped. So all the beliefs and excuses I had about why I couldn't, create time for myself, or why I couldn't do certain things, and why I was putting off everything that was making me feel alive, which was connection with friends and doing things for myself, and, getting out in nature with my family and eating healthy and moving my body. I said I didn't have time for these things because I bought into the cultural illusion that success means hustle, grind, go, 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 work harder than the next person. And after that, my business actually transformed because, people were like, how are you doing this? How can you quote unquote balance it all or find alignment in your life? And I had to reverse engineer how I wanted to feel in my life, and then start planning my days and my weeks in alignment with that. And pay attention to my excuses and my deep fears of like, I'm not enough, and realizing that I was actually building my business from a place of lack and not abundance. And now that my mindset has shifted, there's always more that we can work on, but I have the time and the space to do those things. And my business has like 10x'd itself. And it's just surreal. It's like, it truly is a belief and a mindset.
Oh, that's so fascinating. There's so much awesome stuff that I want to dig into there. But before we do that, can I hit you with some rapid fire questions to just kind of kick things off?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Can you describe your work in 10 words or less?
I'm like counting the words. I help women understand themselves and their children on a deeper level.
Why do you love your work?
I love helping people who have given up hope. And what I mean by that is not people who have given up hope completely, but who have tried everything else and they're like, nothing's going to work. I'm like, I will prove you wrong. And I've done that again and again. And this work truly saves lives, and I love it.
What personal practices or self-care do you make time for regularly?
Right now, my jam is going to the gym, not every day, but about 3 times a week, lifting weights. I also just love being outside, like a walk. I love walking. I love journaling. And I love, love, love spending time off of social media.
I hear you on that one. What is the best thing about being an entrepreneur?
That everything can truly be created on my own terms if I realize that. Sometimes we put ourselves in boxes, even as entrepreneurs, because we have old conditioning. And I absolutely love the freedom aspect when you're conscious and intentional about creating that.
And then what is the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur?
You are your own boss. There's no one else you can blame when you don't get a paycheck, and there's no one else you have to chronically show up. If you are not, for me, if you're not always, investing in yourself and doing the work and realizing that personal development is a huge part of your success, you can't blame anybody else for your success or lack of.
And last one, what is one word that sums up your mission on this planet?
Alignment.
That's a good one. So you shared just before we did the rapid fire that you realized you were building your business from a place of lack, not abundance. Can you give us some examples of what the two look like building from a place of lack and building from a place of abundance?
Yeah, so this is an interesting conversation because the more and more I talk about this, the more I realize that this is like a female issue. I know men typically they work as well. And sometimes I feel like we all have this not go mentality, but like a bias to like overwork ourselves. Not all of us, but anyways, that's just where I'm going with this convo. So my point is women are emotional and our brains think very, very differently. We're nurturers. And I often find that we're overgivers. And what I mean by that is from a place of lack, I wasn't filling my cup up first. And I know that's so cliche, but it was like give. And it will come back to me. But the essence, kind of the intentional part that I forgot, which was you need to be full. Like what energetically you put out there into the world, you will receive back. So nobody's going to want to work with you. When I look at people that I'm personally going to invest in, whether that is a business mentor or whether it is a gym that I want to walk into, whether it's a grocery store where I want to buy my food or where I want to get my hair done or where I want my children to get educated, energy matters. And you can tell when someone has a lack mentality, when they're run down, when they're overwhelmed, when they're, not present, when they're not paying attention. And they're discounting their prices. They're just, you know what I'm talking about, right? It's like a low level energy. You walk into the space, it feels dirty, it feels old because they're like, I don't have enough money to reinvest. And that's how I was running my business. It was like, give, and not realizing that like the intentionality of my energy actually matters. And so the abundance aspect of it, like I found this stuff extremely overwhelming at the beginning. I didn't get like abundance, law of attraction. And I'll tell you another funny story about the law of attraction, but abundance is like, what do you want and how do you want to feel? How can you infuse that into your life? And I believe we all, we have definitely like a negativity bias in our primal brain. But we also have been grown up to like give. Don't give to yourself. It's extremely selfish. And now there's this whole movement of consciousness where people are like, guys, we've been taught a lie. We've drank the wrong Kool-Aid. So I had to and have to on a daily basis condition my brain to think positive. So example, this morning I woke up, things aren't going as I planned in my business through a launch. And I'm like, okay, but this isn't a failure. This is a course correction. And so it's all about, planning, but having flexibility with it and saying what is working, right? Like choosing to focus on all of the wins and not focus on like what didn't go my way. And so abundance is about like, how do I feel when I put a price tag on a product or service? And am I angry and resentful just because somebody else is, charging lower doesn't mean I have to charge a lower fee. I provide more value, or I feel like I won't show up energetically at that price point. So it's really about positioning yourself in alignment with how you want to feel and not discounting that. Or lowering your standards because you're meeting other people where they're at energetically. If you're in a service-based, transformational space, it's about, calling people to rise. It's not about meeting them where they're at in their current energy.
Yes, that is so true. And I love how focused you are on the energy piece because you clearly also get business. You run a very successful business, but you attribute so much of it to getting really in touch with how you want to feel and coming at it from that place. So can we unpack that a little bit? We have a lot of women listening who are entrepreneurs themselves early in their business. I imagine they're at that place where they might feel frustrated or overwhelmed or kind of thinking they need to be in hustle mode. How do you even start stepping into this abundance mindset and aligning your energy for success?
Yes. So I was listening to a podcast the other day with, and you're going to have to correct their names for me. James, what's his name? Wetmore?
James Wedmore? Yeah.
Yes. And Brooke, what's her name? The life coaching lady, the life coach school,
Oh,
Castiello or something.
yes. On Mind Your Business podcast.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and she was talking about, you can't hustle your way to $5 million. And I was like, yeah, you can't. So I'm all about sustainability. And this is our culture today, right? Like the 8 weeks to 6-pack abs, overnight success, write your book in a weekend. Like everyone wants the quick fix. And so when you start your business, you have to realize you're jumping into the unknown, and the unknown is going to kick up all of your limiting beliefs, that's going to include fear, right? I'm not enough. Oh my gosh, what if I fail? And you don't really start to gain the confidence until you've seen some results, until you've gained some traction. And you're like, okay, if I could get one client, I can get another client. Okay, I've had 50 clients. I can find 2 more clients. I used to tell myself, there's like 6 billion plus people on the planet. Can I find like 10 of them who will pay me? And I had to really hang on to that stuff. So when it comes to alignment, one, I think people are only going to hear this when they want to hear it, when they're ready to hear it, because we don't change unless we're in pain. Let's just be honest, right? Like you're not going to seek out problems and like, yeah, you're going to try to control the future and be like, oh, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? And you can plan for that, but life is just going to throw it at you the way that it wants. So for those women who feel overwhelmed, exhausted, like they can't balance both, like the momhood and the business, they're putting themselves last and they're like, where do I start? This is what I want to suggest. One, it takes time. I'm not here to buy, to sell you anything, a quick fix overnight. One, ask yourself, how do I want to feel? And just pick one word. So for me, after I went through chemo and I felt like I was a 90-year-old woman who was like dead inside, I'm like, I want to feel alive. Awesome. That's my word, alive. What aspects of my life don't feel alive right now? And to be honest, when I started, I didn't know how to feel. I felt depleted. I felt like, what does it mean to be alive? I don't know if I've ever felt alive in my entire life. So I just had to ask myself, what do people who feel alive do? And I would see them spending time outside in nature. I would see them eating healthy food. I would see them hanging out with friends, laughing, traveling. And so I started doing some of those things like one by one. And, money was tight. So I had to ask myself in this moment right now, example, me having this conversation with you, what am I doing to feel alive right now? Well, previous to this call, I worked out. I had a really healthy breakfast. I got dressed. I made sure my hair was done rather than hanging out in my pajamas. I went for a little walk. I made sure I had my water. It's like set yourself up for success so that in the moment you are in alignment with how you want to feel. And when it comes to business, it's saying, is this business model in alignment with how you want to feel? So I literally ask myself this probably a million times a day, and I get out of alignment a lot, and it's progress, not perfection. And then I just have to shift my mindset back. So I'm like, okay, this, we're getting really busy. I'm scaling. This isn't working anymore. How can I scale so that it's more in alignment with how I want to feel, which is how I want to feel, but also the service that I want to provide. But the truth is I'm willing to look at that and to scale rather than staying stuck and be like, oh, this is just the way it is. I can't. Having a growth mindset as well and being open to possibility and asking for help is huge.
Yes, being open to support and help. That was something that I had to really learn as I was transitioning in my business, switching from that sort of hustle mentality into my 3-day work week after my first daughter had arrived, and realizing that I didn't want to and shouldn't be doing it all by myself, and that I needed to outsource and eliminate and automate pieces of my business instead of just being this solopreneur, because I was thinking, you know what? There's not one successful woman out there who's making multiple six, seven figures, who is doing it all by herself and happy.
Yes.
So yeah, it is about kind of seeing, kind of sometimes almost doing before you're believing, right? Like you said, it's like, what do people who feel alive do? They get outside, they eat healthy foods, and maybe you didn't always feel like doing that, but just putting yourself in that space starts to infuse that energy into you.
Yeah, it's amazing. And okay, so here's the thing. I always say parenting is personal growth on steroids, but so is building a business. Like any limiting beliefs or blocks that you have are going to come up. And like you said about the asking for help and seeking support, like you can't grow and scale without a team. I understand that's scary, but all of your stuff comes up of like trusting people, making sure you have the right people in place, like not just hiring people because they need a job, right? Like legit, there's so many things that come up and you're going to be triggered, but it's working through the trigger to, again, get back to how you want to feel as your guidepost.
And I know so much of what you teach and the work that you do is with moms, and we have a lot of moms in our community. So share with us a little bit about how this comes to be on the home front. You know, like how do you set yourself up for success and also set your family up to thrive and feel really great too? How do we balance that?
Balance is bullshit. Did you know I was going to say that?
I had a feeling.
I don't understand where that like terminology came from. I feel like it comes from ego and it has like a very perfection-y perspective. But you got to find what works and what doesn't work. So like every season of my life is different. So 2 years ago, my husband quit his 9 to 5 so that he can help me in my business, but also do his own thing where he has more time freedom. It's therefore he's able to help the kids in the morning. And then sometimes he can't because like he's traveling or whatever. So one of the things that I do is we do have like a weekly planning meeting. Who needs to be where, who needs to, do what, who's going to do that. And my husband and I communicate a lot about that. And when we do, I'm like, ooh, that's a lot. Like that looks like a lot on the schedule. Like, how can we pare that back? And so I have to say, no, thank you. I have to turn things down. There was an event that I was supposed to go to the other night, and I could have went if I really wanted to, if I was a people pleaser and I just can't say no, but I'm like, I don't want to go. I had a full day and the kids are home, and yes, the oldest could watch them, but I'm going to put them to bed and I'll make sure everyone gets, I had to manage the energy. So it's about, again, going like, what does our week look like forward, moving ahead? What can we see that are going to be the barriers, but then chronically course correcting. And at the root of all of this, it's how do you want to feel in your life? And the more permission I give myself to ask myself those questions and to do those things, the more, I watch my husband doing the same, so that it relinquishes any anger or resentment that we have towards each other. And it also gives my kids the same permission. So there's a huge movement towards, I'm in the parenting world. We had helicopter parents, and then we had lawnmower parents, where they're trying to like remove all of the blocks for children. And my children have a lot of freedom. We don't, they did hockey in the summer, but we don't put them in we did hockey in the winter, but we don't put them in a million activities in the summer. It's like, go play with sticks, play soccer, go ask a friend to play. Childhood has changed because children are over scheduled, and I'm just refusing to raise my children that way, and allowing them to just be children and to be independent and to have, to make their own mistakes and to play and to get dirty. And that makes a big impact in how we run our days and our schedules as well.
Yeah, that's so important. That's something that I'm recognizing now at, being a mom, and my girls are young, they're 4 and 2. But even now, noticing like when my stuff comes up that like, oh, they should do this, or they should be here, or they should participate in this thing. And I'm like, where is this should stuff coming from? Like, I don't even know, is it society? I mean, it's so funny that we sort of have this checklist in our minds of like what the right steps are for ourselves or our kids. And we sometimes hold ourselves to these really arbitrary standards just because we think it's how we're supposed to show up. So I love that you're doing what feels right for you and for your own family and your own kids. So I imagine there's probably a lot of women who either feel uncomfortable doing that or feel like that maybe they feel guilty about not saying yes to the things, right? Like you said, every week you sit down and look at your calendar and it's like, oh, there's certain things we have to reply no to. I'm not going to show up at that event. I'm not going to volunteer for that thing. How do we get those boundaries and feel good about them without feeling guilty or bad about it?
I think that's the key is everyone doesn't want to feel. Nobody wants to feel the negative stuff. How do we do it without feeling guilty? I invite you to feel incredibly guilty. I invite you to feel all of the fear. I invite you to feel all of the disappointment and all of the failure and all of the judgment, because we have to realize that our feelings are part of the human experience. And if we avoid them or we're judging them, that is where we're taking action from a place of lack and scarcity. So, example, I get the email and the school is like, we need volunteers for this upcoming school fair. And I'm like, I volunteered for that last year and I sat there twiddling my thumbs. Like, I didn't feel like I was being productive. I also feel like I can be better, be of better service in a different capacity, but also like, I just can't right now. And that's okay. We can say no to things. Like I volunteer for other stuff. I don't need to say yes all the time. I'd rather go to the event with my children than volunteer, because every time I'm volunteering, I'm not actually engaging. So do I feel like I'm letting them down? Yes, a little bit, but guess what? I'm still going to go and participate, and I can sit with that discomfort and those feelings of guilt. And I get so many messages. I actually just did a boundary workshop in my mastermind that I teach, or my mastery class that I teach. And the number one feedback that I got, and I posted this on Instagram too, is how can I set a boundary without feeling guilty? How can I communicate my needs to somebody else and enforce the boundary? And here's the thing, we don't like being uncomfortable, but the true path to success and freedom, and I mean success on your own terms, is your willingness to get uncomfortable, your ability to get uncomfortable. So taking that action and like strengthening that muscle. And I'm such an advocate for action. That was going back to like the whole law of attraction thing. I was like understanding law of attraction. I'm just going to close my eyes and meditate and visualize, but I wasn't taking action because I didn't know that was part of the process. And so it's like, if you want to, feel better in your skin, you have to physically take action and buy healthier food and meal prep it and eat it. If you want to feel stronger, you have to physically not only buy the gym membership or the yoga clothes, you have to physically go. And that is where the discomfort will come up. And your ability to feel the discomfort and to move through it through action is where the magic happens. So I invite everyone to feel their guilt and realize that it's an illusion. It's a mask of fear trying to hold you back. And when you can move through it and realize there's a bigger purpose here, that, okay, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to move forward with this business, even if I feel guilty or I'm taking away from my children, because I want to create financial freedom and I want to make an impact in their future so that we can travel more and so that I can give them more experiences, and realizing we're not taking away from our children just because we're not with them 24 hours a day. That was a big one that I had to work through as well. We're giving more to them. So it's focusing on the bigger why and not like in the moment and the discomfort of the feeling.
And I think, kind of piggybacking off what you were saying about just like feeling the feelings, There's that saying, like, the only problem we ever have is thinking we have a problem. And so if you're feeling guilty or you're feeling whatever negative emotion that you're labeling as bad, ruminating about it is creating a problem. But if you just sit with it and let it wash over you and do what you need to do to maybe move through it, if there is anything other than just like holding space for it, there's really not much of a problem. It's just a feeling, and it will pass and it will move on. And you, like you said, build that muscle for dealing with it.
Yeah. And I can see how like the old me, where we started at the beginning of the conversation, avoided feeling those feelings, even though I felt like crap all the time. And I convinced myself that I'm supposed to be overwhelmed. I'm supposed to be tired. Feeling overwhelmed and fatigue are very different feelings than feeling scared or guilty and moving through those big emotions. So I avoided the big emotions, and I was used to feeling like shit. So I started, okay, if I move through this big emotion, I'm going to be able to get to freedom a whole hell of a lot quicker than if I just feel like crap all the time.
Yeah. And then when you hold all that in, it makes you sick. So.
Yes. And I learned my lesson that time, and I'm not going back.
Yeah. Well, you have come a long way since then, girl, for sure. Before we close up though, where can people connect with you?
Yeah, so I hang out a lot on my podcast. I'm doing a daily podcast in 2019, which are mostly me talking to myself, just about like Q&As that I get on Instagram, talking about parenting, business, alignment. So that's Mom is in Control. I also have some freebies on my website about time freedom. You can check those out, or Mindful Discipline, and that's on my website at heatherchauvin.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Heather. I always enjoy spending time with you. This is a special treat. And I look forward to more future recorded conversations.
Me too. Thanks, Cailen.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to today's episode.